Hey, welcome to Fieros Reborn. I don't feel particularly reborn today. I feel re-dead, to be fair. I am going to be delivering today's sermon to the Buddha, who looks like a small version of me inside me, which I believe is what the Buddha represents anyway, is the indwelling self. So I'm going to put him there, and I'm going to have him to talk to. Dear Buddha, I am doing story time. I've come here to tell you my story. I don't know why you want to listen to my story. You probably just tell me to get enlightened and forget your story or whatever. But I guess I've come here for help, guidance. And the reason that I'm telling you the story is because I want to be finished with it, and it was a story that really affected me and hurt me and was difficult, and I feel like I'm still trapped in it. I feel like some of my energy is lost within that story, so it kind of got frozen or stuck there, and I feel like I am not able to move on yet, because it's like I lived about 300 lifetimes in one lifetime between the age of I don't know, 17 and 30 or 31, I suppose. And I've been through counseling and therapy and done meditation and written loads and created loads, and I now am at a point where I actually don't know what I'm doing anymore. I had plans, I thought they were going to work out, and they didn't work out. And I'm back to square one, but the kind of square one that feels a lot more heavy than the first square one. The first square one was like bright and fresh and bold and new, and this square one feels like square one with the weight of millions of squares behind me. So all my decisions, I feel like I've done most of them already, and none of them have worked out, and I'm back to where I was to begin with. Maybe wiser, but maybe more weary. So that's why I'm telling the story, because I feel like somewhere along the line I lost myself. Well, I weighed myself down. I just got overwhelmed by everything, and too many things happened. Too many bad things happened, and I have to recover from them. So the first bad thing that happened, I guess, was my first granddad died when I was 13, and I don't think I felt sad. I think I just numbed out. I just screened it out somehow. I wrote a poem on the day that he died in my little journal book thing. I feel like you know this already. I feel like I feel like the Buddha knows everything about me already anyway, but it's for your benefit as well, I suppose. For my benefit, everyone's, I don't fucking know. Alright, let's carry on. So, my granddad, he died when I was 13. I wanted him to see me become 15 because I felt like I would be a man when I was 15. And he died when I was 13, and I wanted him to see me do my GCSEs. And I remember him telling me stories about the war, because I had to ask him for a homework project about the war and stuff. I think that was when I was in primary school, and I didn't really listen. I couldn't really listen. You know, it's just too much, and I didn't understand it. And he was telling me all these things, and I didn't understand it, and I just kind of zoned out. So I don't even know what he said. He had this little penknife thing though. He always had a little penknife on him so he could open things, like presents and whatever needed opening, a little penknife on him. And I used to love him. I used to love penknives. I got a little red one. And then I bought this big fat one with loads of stuff in it. All the different little things, whatever they are, different tools. Because I thought it was going to be better, and it wasn't really better, but it was still cool. And I think he got me interested in fishing. I think it was him. So I had my little fishing rod. I still got, it's not a little fishing rod, it's a perfectly normal sized fishing rod. I still got the fishing rod. I saw it the other day. I haven't used it in ages, but I've been going down the canal. I've just been there just now actually. It's late and I wanted to just try and go somewhere quiet and still. And I got scared. And I don't like it that everywhere in this world seems to be scary. There's so many people who I'm afraid of. You know, I never used to be this scared. I suppose shy. But so many things have happened to me from other people that I'm scared of other people. Overall, I suppose. I mean, I'm not like totally terrified of other people, but I'm scared mainly. I would rather not talk to people at the moment still. I mean, here's my life. I just feel it's a life where everything that could have gone wrong has gone wrong. And it's nothing, it's like no worse than anyone else has been through. People have gone through a hell of a lot worse than I have, but it's just from my perspective, I don't know those other people's lives, do I? Only know my own life. And all right, so I broke up with my girlfriend because she cheated on me. That was probably the first bad thing that happened. Big bad thing, I suppose. Oh, previous to that, my granddad died. Yeah, but that's an acceptable part of life. I knew that was going to happen. It was like, I think at some level we all know that our loved ones, the older generation, are most likely going to die before we do. And my granddad was ill for quite a while before he died, so we knew that he was going to die, and then he did. So it was expected. But I guess that it was still a fear in the back of our minds as a family that we knew he was ill, and it was more of a case of like, when is he going to die? You know. And he, very near to the end of his life, he told me, that I was a grand lad, which was his way of saying that he loved me and that he was proud of me. He must have known that he was gonna die, because he'd never said anything like that before. He kind of took me aside at the dinner table and whispered it in my ear. He wanted me to know, aside from all the hubbub of the family stuff, he wanted me to know. He wanted me to know that he cared about me and that he was proud of me and that he loved me, and I suppose he was trying to say that he was going to die as well. But I didn't actually hear him properly the first time. I thought he said that. I thought he leaned over to say, I'm your granddad. I was like, oh. I thought, and I said to him out loud, so the rest of the table could hear, I know you're my granddad. Why are you being so silly? And then I feel like I embarrassed him a little bit there, but I'm sure he was okay with it. But then he said, no, you're a grand lad. And it can't have been long after that until he died. Yeah. And then, then we went to the funeral, and I barely remember that. I remember my dad saying some stuff about my granddad taking him in out for a drive or something and playing golf with him, and that my granddad was a bit of a boy racer or something. And yeah, I remember going to the coffin room though first, whatever that room is called. I don't know, the room where you kind of see the dead person, in the undertaker's coffin thing where they've got a sort of presentation open casket. I don't know what you want to call it, but it was my granddad and he was lying in the coffin. And so it was me, my mum, my dad, and my brother, and he was just lying there. I don't know. I don't know what it meant really. It wasn't a happy experience, that's for sure. uh, in a way, though, it was beautiful scenery. Like the lighting was nice. The room was nice. The coffin was nice, and then there he was lying in there, like just dead, I suppose. Well, yeah, he was dead, but I don't think he didn't have his glasses on, which so it was strange. I don't think I'd seen him before very often without his glasses on, and he had this little mark on his underneath his eye because I think he had a injury, just a minor injury, but because he was quite weak or there was some problem, it just kind of bruised badly and stayed red for ages and stayed bruised and it was still there. Um, yeah, but they put makeup on him and stuff, and it's gross. The whole, like, I don't want to know, like, that shit's got to smell. I smell bad enough without washing for for a week or something. So if I was dead, I'm gonna stink. I'm gonna stink real bad. You know, shit, man. I fart. I mean, the first thing I'm gonna do when I die is fart a load. I know that much. Yeah. So it's just, ugh, it's just gross. I don't really want to be near a dead body. I think the smell is just grim. But it couldn't smell anything there. And my dad to touch him or something. I didn't really want to touch him, but I touched him. It was just cold. Um, yeah. My mum says that he didn't look like him, and because his spirit had gone or something. And I was like, I don't know. I think it did look like him. Honestly, I thought it did look like him. I couldn't really say that. I don't know. It just looks like he was sleeping, maybe, but he wasn't. He was dead. Um, I don't know. Everyone else was crying, and I wasn't crying. I don't know why I wasn't crying. Uh, just I don't know. But my parents said I went into shock. That I looked like I was terrified rather than sad. Maybe I was terrified, but I can't remember. I honestly don't remember thinking about it either afterwards until much later. Um, and that was after doing some significant work to try and remember things from my past. Um, yeah, so that was that. And my mum and my gran used to commemorate his death anniversary, the anniversary of his death, by going for a meal on that day. Now they don't do that anymore, which is sad. It's really sad. But my mum has recently started talking about him more, which is nice. And we've got a picture. We've only finally got a picture of him in our lounge, actually up in the lounge, and that we haven't had that in that whole time. So I think my mum was just not really ready to face it for 20 years. When my parents die, I'm just gonna face it hard and just grieve and grieve and grieve for as long as I need to, and just feel like feel like death and go insane for as long as I need to go insane and feel horrendous for as long as I need to, and get counselling and go to grief workshops and shit like this and just face it and write about it and do everything I fucking can to deal with it and to not go into denial. Because if I go into denial and just like don't process it and don't try and process it, and if I just go and try and avoid the whole thing, it's just gonna bite me in the ass later, and I do not want to have unresolved grief. I'm just gonna face it and look it hard in the eye and go fuck for about 3 years. Oh god. yeah, so that was the first bad thing that ever happened, and at that point, I kind of just decided. I think I made a decision in my brain about myself that I was depressed, because I remember thinking to myself that I'm depressed, uh, and I was just looking at everything after that and noticing how things pass away and how all things die, and like the ants are gonna die, the leaves are gonna fall off the trees and die, the squirrel running around is gonna die. All my family are gonna die. Everyone's gonna die in the whole world. So what's the fucking point? And nothing's worth anything, and every experience is always dying. So I had that mantra going around in my head for like the next 4 or 5 years, probably until I was around 18. And on some level, I kind of forgot about it, and I just let that. I don't know, it just sort of fizzled out, I suppose. The obsession with the impermanent nature of life. I got really, really obsessed with it, and I was just watching it everywhere. And it came back later, actually, when I'd come out of the psychiatric ward and I was majorly depressed. That same feeling and thought pattern came back, and it was even worse this time. It was just obsessive. And I suppose, well, I put it down to unresolved grief, basically. I put it down to, like, the reason that came up in the depression was it was all to do with grief, it was all to do with death, and I hadn't managed to face those feelings of grief and death and loss. And so it was just stuck in my head space instead of turning into a feeling and being released and crying or whatever. So, and it became a philosophical thing, like I was a conundrum. I was trying to solve it as a conundrum of time, the nature of time passing and impermanence, and how everything is so fleeting and ephemeral, and trying to like rationalize it somehow and get a grip of it somehow, and like try and understand it and try and put it into words and try and like make it make sense somehow, and like sort of try to defeat it, I guess. It was like, yeah, to try and defeat the whole thing and figure a way that it was wrong, maybe, and that maybe if I could get an answer to it, or to sort of analyze it to death, or figure it out, that maybe no, I just wanted to really get it. I wanted to understand it, and I wanted it to not be the truth, but I wanted to well, I just wanted those thoughts to stop, really, because I was just thinking about this concept as one concept: impermanence. The impermanent nature of life, the impermanent, fleeting nature of all life. Everything is always always dying. Every moment is always dying. Every action is always dying. Everything is arising, subsiding, rising, subsiding. You can't hold on to anything. There's nothing at the core of anything. There's only emptiness. There's only nothing to grasp. And it's a very Buddhist concept, isn't it, Buddha? But it was one that I could not reconcile in my mind. I just and like, what is the nature of time then? If time is always passing, is it coming towards me? Am I going through it? What is it? And it really, really, really intensely bugged me. Like I could not think of anything else, and like it was so distressing in my brain to be constantly thinking about this. It was like an OCD, literal, obsessive, compulsive thought pattern that would just be going round and round and round, and every observation I made in the world would reinforce it, and I'd just be like, oh, there's a leaf, oh, it's going to die, oh, there's a person, oh, they're going to die, oh, there's a sun rising, oh, it's going to set, oh, it's going to die eventually as well. So it was just, everything was to do that again. And this is after I came out of the psychiatric ward and I was depressed as fuck, and that took ages to dissolve. I was going to therapy, having CBT therapy, after I came out of psychiatric ward, for depression and for these obsessive thoughts. And I kept saying to the woman, my therapist, I was like, I've just got these thoughts going around and around in my fucking head. Well, I didn't swear, but I've got these thoughts going around and around in my head, and it's all about impermanence. And then the one thing that she probably did right, she did two really good things. out of about 3 years worth of pretty lame, sorry, lame therapy. Pretty, I was thankful to have had it at all, because it was someone who was there who would listen to me at least, somewhere I could go to feel like I could make some kind of improvement, and that there was someone there for me, But she was pretty weak in terms of a therapist, but she did two good things, and they probably won't capitalize enough upon. But the first one that she did was she asked me about my granddad, because I said that it would come about this thought pattern when my granddad died, and I got very defensive straight away, actually, and I didn't realize until afterwards that I had been defensive, and because she'd asked me about my granddad, like what was he like, and I just immediately went into this kind of, I don't think it's important, I don't think we should talk about it, I don't think it's not to do with that, I don't feel like it's the right thing to talk about, and just kind of really pushed that whole topic away. And if she was clever, she would have noticed that, but she didn't notice it, or she did notice and just kind of allowed me to have go my own way on it. The other good thing that she did, from a therapeutic thing for me that I found good, was I was going through a really hard time. I can't remember why. I went through really hard times. Oh God. My whole life was a hard time for 5 years. Every week, going to a therapist and being depressed as hell. Every week, riding my bike. At that time, I guess I drove eventually, but riding my bike to the therapist office and grumbling about the fact that I was going to therapy and having to ride my bike through this horrible traffic when there's all these horrible people around in this horrible area. and then it wouldn't do anything anyway, and I was all upset about the fact that I was having to ride to therapy and it was going to be terrible and it wouldn't help at all, and it didn't help. But overall, I guess it did help. It must have helped, because I'm better now, and if it didn't help immediately then it was a contribution towards me finally recovering eventually. But it sure didn't feel like it was helping much while I was there. But I don't know what would have helped, to be honest. Yeah, so I was going through hard times, really, really wanting to die for a considerable amount of the time. I realised we've just skipped a whole load of the story, by the way. But this is what I'm thinking about. So yeah, I used to have to go to the New Horizons clinic thing. It's a Slough mental health centre thing, and go there. I used to have an injection in my leg thing, or my butt basically, every week for my antipsychotic medication. Just because it was originally it happened in hospital because I refused to take medication. And then I did take the medication. I just think that they would give it to me by injection eventually, because it was a easier way to administer it, and it was it was a slow release injection thing that they gave me, so it lasted 2 weeks, and then you go and get another one, whatever. So it feels a bit like mind control when you think of it like that. There you go, you'll be okay for 2 weeks now. There you go, you'll be okay for 2 weeks now. Oh God, it's just, the system is fucked. I don't know. Yeah, so I had to go there to get my injection, and I'd go there as well to speak with my care coordinator about various things that I could do. Like get involved in groups or whatever. They were quite good actually. They got me a job, to be fair. One of the first people who I was speaking to there, she was in touch with a local charity, music charity, and oh, I think I just tried to basically wipe this whole period of my life from my memory. When I got to a state of kind of happiness or health, mental health, I just didn't want to think about it anymore. The amount of suffering I went through. And we were doing these talks, me and my dad, at schools and mental health conferences about my story, and I just got to a point where I was like, I can't do this anymore. I need to stop talking about it because it was still fresh at that time and it was still raw, Like, I was giving these talks to sixth formers and then nurses about all the stuff that had happened, and it was just kind of like, I wanted to get away from it because it had dominated my life since I was probably 20, I guess. It dominated my life for about 6 years, I suppose. Maybe even 7 years. And I just wasn't able to. Everything about my life was about my psychosis and then about my depression. And I finally got to this point where I was psychologically quite healthy and not depressed anymore, and quite happy and finding myself and finding my own power. And I just don't want to go near it anymore. I don't want to do any more fucking talks. I didn't want to write anything about it. I didn't want to revisit those memories. I didn't want to go back to those places. I even tried to get my diagnosis removed from my thing because my medical record still says I've got schizophrenia, even though it's been in remission, whatever that fucking means. Remission. Okay, so it's gone away. So why don't you just take it off the thing then? If it's in remission, it might come back. Fuck off. I hate the medicalization of mental health stuff. It's just makes me feel tainted. Because I had what I experienced as a spiritual experience, and I got labelled as having schizophrenia. And Buddha's just smiling away. So, I lost my train of thought. As a train went by. Actually, there's a train outside. I live across the railway tracks. Across from the railway tracks, and the fucking trains are so annoying. Everything's so loud. Cars drive down this road really fast. I'm like, it's a quiet road. Why do you have to drive so fast and make so much noise? Oh, and the birds are always like, everything's so fucking noisy around here. I just want some peace and quiet. and I went down to the canal to get some peace and quiet because it was peaceful and quiet when I went down there on my bike earlier on. I thought, oh, it'd be night time, it'd be even more peaceful and quiet now. But it's fucking scary at night time, isn't it? Oh, oh! I sat there and I was like meditating in front of the canal, and all there's patterns of light on the plants there, and I was going, what the hell is that? What are they, bugs? What is this, some magic shit going on? What is it? So that freaked me out, and then the crickets were going whatever fucking noises crickets make. There's crickets in the background, and then there's some plop in the canal plop. You got that, and then there was this weird noise. It sounded like I was like, well, I don't know what that is. It sounded like someone or something trying to prise a terrapin out of its shell and cracking it like. Oh god, it's freaked. So that freaked me out, and then and then and there were horses over there, and they were in like a what I know to be a schoolyard, and I was like, I swear there's no I swear that's a playground bit. Is that like why are there horses there? And there were horses there, and maybe it wasn't the actual playground, maybe it was a field next to the playground, but it looked very similar, very close, whatever. But that was weird. I was like, are they horses? Am I seeing that right? It's just a pattern of the shadow, but no, then it moved. I was like, ah, fuck. So they are horses. And then so there's all these stupid noises freaking me out. and then I looked over to the left, and there was this like white figure off in the distance. I was like, oh god, is that a person? Oh, it's a person. Oh god, all right, it's a person. So only weird people come out to the canal. Okay, so I just got freaked out. I was like, fuck this, I'm going home. You know, I don't care if it is tranquil, it scares the shit out of me. So I walked back, and then on the way walking back, I saw what appeared to be a woman hanging from a tree like this. It looked like a fucking nun was hanging from a tree like that. And I was like, oh god, now I'm hallucinating, or now I'm seeing ghosts. Oh lord. And it was a pattern of the leaves that initially looked like this, like really, really strikingly like a woman hanging from a tree, from a noose. Oh, and it stayed like that, and then it sort of changed to just back to leaves, and then it came back to look like a woman hanging from a noose. And I was like, oh god. And as I walked past it, it just sort of turned into the leaves. I was like, fucking hell. Scared the shit out of me. And then the white figure that was in the background in the distance, that was a bloke, but he was like wearing an invisibility cloak as well, because as I was approaching him, I was like, I swear there's a person there. Is there a person there or not? Or is it just fucking shadows and patterns of light, or what is it? And it was a person, but I only realised it was a person when I was about like 5 meters away from him. So I was like, oh, this is scaring the shit out of me. I am not going to run. I'm not going to run, but I'm going to walk very quickly home. Oh, man. And then I was walking past, like, I got out of the canal bit, and I was like, oh, okay, cool. And I was walking along the side of the road to get back over the bridge to kind of get back to my road. This is only like 10 minutes down the road from me, or less, 5-10 minutes walk from where I live, and I'm shitting myself. Yeah. And oh yes, I was walking past the railing things with these bushes on the other side, and there was this noise, and I swear it was like keeping pace with me. I was like, is that a person in there? What is that? What kind of person creeps around next to a fence? Like, and maybe it was a fox or something. I don't know, but it would creep the fuck out of me again. And then, so I was walking back. I got to the bridge. I was like, oh. And there was a car there, and the lights weren't going. And then it sort of reversed back a bit. I was like, oh, you going to reverse back to talk to me? What is this place? And then they didn't. They just went off. I was like, thank fuck for that. So I went over the bridge, got back to my road, and had to walk past the creepy forest. But that was okay. There was no one in there. And then I was like, fine, safe. And I got back home and picked the Buddha up off from underneath the tree because I left him outside the front to sort of keep watch, protect me. And I said to him, I was like, you were supposed to keep watch. And then I picked him up. I sat with him for a bit actually, and just sat with him, looking at him like, oh, what's going on, Buddha? You know, what am I supposed to do? And then I thought, okay, I'll bring him in and talk to him. And that brings us up to the present moment. Hello, Buddha. Yeah, you smiley little git. So I'll just show you him again to just make sure you know he is actually real. He is a thing. I am talking to an actual thing. I'm talking to an item, yeah, but I believe that he is listening. Something's listening. Maybe it's God. Maybe it's just me. Maybe the Buddha is me. Maybe I'm the Buddha. Anyway, yeah. So let's put him back and let's talk to him again. So these videos are like an hour long. So that original part was pretty hardcore, eh? Crying a lot. Okay, so why don't I try and pick back up from the other story, which was the girlfriend story. So she broke up with me. Oh yeah, and then the band that I was in, the girl founding member, like me and this girl, we made a band when we were like 16 or 15 or something. 15 probably. And then we got a drummer and we got a bassist together from people around who are in school with us. And yeah, we called it Silent Dawn. But after, actually right at the beginning, she was going to go off with some other band, but I managed to kind of convince her to stay in our band. She sent me a text that was intended for someone else, but I believe she sent it to me on purpose so that she could try and broach the subject of her wanting to leave the band. But she didn't leave at that first time, and I feel like she always wanted to leave, that she was never really fully into the band, so it was a kind of inevitable thing that she did leave. I mean, we broke up for a little bit as a band, for a brief period, and the bassist kind of left, and then he came back, and it was all a bit of drama, really. Like, you know, people. My bassist was going through the fact that his mum and dad were divorcing or separating or whatever at the time, so he was just kind of flaky in general, because of that, and he was dealing with that, and we didn't really realise that that's why he was flaky, but that's why he was flaky, because he was going through a really tough time, and no one really knew that he was going through a tough time. Yeah, so that was that, and he was flaky as hell. He was also pretty crap at bass, actually. But his enthusiasm was great, but he would always forget the songs, and that's a pretty shit thing to do when you're trying to be in a professional quality band. Yeah. So, you know, he would just sometimes just completely forget a song or play a load of wrong notes. Like, is it this one? Just, man. So it was a bit shoddy. I don't think he was a real musician at heart. He was just a kind of hobby musician, like dabbled in it and thought it was cool, made him look cool, but he wasn't really a bassist. I don't think he ever properly learned bass. If he watched this, he'd probably hate me for saying that, but he wasn't really a bassist. You know, he wasn't really committed to his bass. I think you have to have a certain level of commitment to your instrument to be able to get anywhere with it, and I don't think he ever really bothered. Anyway, drummer was good. Yeah, but so she left the band eventually. I should say that we had loads of really good gigs. So it wasn't all bad. You know, we had loads of really good gigs. We won a Battle of the Bands competition. I think we won 2 Battle of the Bands competitions actually. One of them we won like £600 worth of recording time. That was the prize. So we recorded 2 songs, which came out really well, actually, considering how young we were. I mean, they don't sound great now, but comparatively, they're pretty good. I think they're pretty good. Quite raw, quite good. Yeah. So we did that. That was nice. And then I believe we must have won another one somehow, because I swear we got another like day's recording out of it, or a weekend or something. I think it was a day or a weekend, I don't know. But we got another session where we recorded a single in the same studio, and we recorded a single and a little quick live take of a B-side or whatever you call it. Yeah, second track. And that was really good. We loved that song. It was called Better, and it was like the favourite song. Pretty much everyone who listened to that found that one to be their favourite out of all of them. I liked it to begin with. I had, honestly, it was taken in a direction I didn't quite want it to go by the producer. The producer wanted it to be quite punchy, and I wanted it to be a little bit more sloppy than that. I also wanted it to be more, I had more weird effects going on it. I did like a demo at home, and it came out very different to what it came out like on the record. And in a way, I feel annoyed that I didn't stick to how I wanted it to be, because at the end of the day, it's not become successful. It's not become a major pop record. So I feel like I sacrificed my own internal vision and my own understanding of the song as how I wanted it to be. I sacrificed that to make something that was poppier and kind of catchier and more appealing to the masses. And I basically went along with the producer's idea, and now I've got a product that, yeah, it's really good, but it's not what I wanted it to be, so therefore it's not creatively satisfying. Because if that had gone somewhere and that had made a load of money for me, then I might have been able to go, yeah, that's wicked. But for me, it's just like slightly off point, if that makes sense. It's like I wanted to draw a star, and I got a squiggly circle type thing. So yeah, does that make sense? As in, like, if it doesn't matter to anyone else in the world and it only matters to me because I'm the only one really who cares about it, then, you know, it's my product, and I let this guy basically change the whole idea for it. And that was under the pretext or the premise that it would be more saleable, and it hasn't gone anywhere. So that just means that I'm left with something that I don't really like that much, or that I had a different vision for. So basically, all I'm going to do eventually, if I can be bothered, is to record it how I wanted to record it, which undoubtedly for many people will sound worse. But for me, I'll be like, this is how I wanted to fucking do it in the first place. With all these weird effects and with this humming thing at the end and a slower pace. And it's more kind of like, and like this sort of whoa trippy vibe, whereas what we did on the CD, I'm looking at it over there. What we did on the CD was make it fast and choppy and stuff. There's my groin, but the song is called Better. It's got a star by it because it was recorded at a different studio to the rest of them. Okay, so I wonder if we've got any Silent Dawn things. Yes, we do. Silent Dawn, Langley Grammar. Live. It's a terrible front cover, I think, but I made it. I used to make the front covers for stuff. The back cover's good. That's a nice little silhouette. I quite like that. So we did. So these songs are Melancholy, Torn by Natalie and Brudia. Selfish was my song, or mine, and Steph. Before I Die, that was Steph's song. Why, that was my song. When I See You, was mine and Steph. Jump was my song. On a Plane by Nirvana. So there you go. Yeah, the CD's obviously not in there. Oh well. Yeah. I mean, it was really good. I genuinely felt like that was what I wanted to do with my life, and I still do. And I've just drifted so far from my original purpose in life. I've got lost, basically. I've got lost among all the things that have gone wrong and all the things that have happened and all the decisions and detours that I've made and all the relationships I've been in that have dragged me away or taught me something else or showed me something else. And now I'm 32, and the original goal when I was like 15, 16, I thought I would have been probably some kind of rock star by now. You know, we had the promise. We just didn't have the knowledge, for one thing. We didn't really know how to break into the industry properly. We didn't have the experience, obviously, but we got some of that. And then we just, we were too young, I guess, and life took us in different ways. So that was that one. Yeah, so, but the girl, Steph, I may as well call her Steph since I've just showed you her name in there. Steph left the band around the same time that I was going through the ending of Me and Mrs. A. And I had these kind of two main women in my life suddenly leave me. Like, I was at Mrs. A's flat in London and going like, oh man, sorry, got a spiky thing in my butt. I'm sitting on the floor in the canal, not of the canal, on the side. Yeah, so I was at Mrs. A's flat in London, and I was on the phone to my band kind of mentor. So we were rehearsing at this studio in Uxbridge, or near Uxbridge, like West Drayton area. We were rehearsing in the studio, and the guy who ran the studio was a bit of a veteran in the music industry. Like, he'd been in bands for ages and ages. He owned his little studio. You know, he taught music. He had his own bands. He had like a covers band and then his original band, or lots of different bands. I don't know how many bands he was in, but he basically sort of was all about the music and all about the live music, and had been for his whole life. So he had opinions that I respected, and he had knowledge that I respected, and he also knew, he was just kind of wise with regard to life and bands. And he said to me, like, I was on the phone basically asking him if there's anything I can do to keep my band member, you know, like, she's thinking of straying or she's thinking of quitting, and what can I do? And I think he basically said, like, he said a few good things, but one thing that annoyed me, he said that I sounded like David Bowie, and I didn't like that because I wanted I felt as though David Bowie can't really sing. I don't think David Bowie really tries to sing pitch perfectly. He's got a very unique voice, and I didn't like the unique voice aspect of that thing at the time, because I wanted to be some kind of pitch perfect person, and I don't think I've ever really been. I've never really had that voice, that kind of voice. Yeah, but the good thing that he said, I suppose, was that bands, they will end. And I didn't want to hear it, but it was true, and other people have said it as well. But he said, like, you know, he said something like, oh, I can't remember. It was quite good though. He said there'll be another one or something, or you can that all bands will come to an end eventually, so you have to just be prepared for that. Which is true, you know. All things do disintegrate eventually. back to my original point, eh? But I don't know what he said, like whether he said that there's nothing you can really do if she just wants to leave. You just kind of have to accept it and let her go. So that was a bummer. And he probably said to just carry on as a three-piece or find someone else or something. So yeah, it was a tough moment, tough times. I felt like if I could do anything to get her to stay, I would have done. Like I would have tried to convince her somehow to stay, but she wasn't having it. So that was that. So I was like on the stairs. I just remember being on the stairs chatting to this guy on the phone and telling him about Steph leaving or wanting to leave or whatever, and then going in to Mrs. A's part of the top level of the thing, and then finding her flirting with this guy, and I was just like, oh man, two major things were happening at the same time, and two women as well, major women in my life, my girlfriend and then my long-term friend and bandmate, who were basically leaving me. So that sucked. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And then, so then I went to get this job at the Outback restaurant. Not directly, but you know, that's the next phase of things. And my bassist was working there as well. He got me the job. Well, he chivied me along to go and give my CV in and talk to the guys. So I did. He said, "Come on, I'll go with you, or you can come with me, or whatever. And you should do it because it'll be fun, and you need a job, and blah blah blah." And you keep whining about this stuff. But there's another aspect to this as well, which is I mentioned on a previous video that I was getting desperate to go out with someone, because by that point Mrs. A and I had been broken up for a while, and I was like trying to find someone else to go out with. I was still young, and I was still quite codependent, like still quite needing of other people, and like not knowing who I was outside of a relationship very well. But then there was another aspect as well, which was I was starting to find myself outside of relationships. Yet I was still depressed that I had no relationship. And I was really alright. So there's a lot of things in here actually now that I need to try and organise. So I was smoking weed with my bassist after gigs, and after work we would go around to his, and he had this big bed that like a bunch of us would all go and sort of sit on his bed, pass a joint around, and watch like comedy programs or whatever, or just chat shit. And then like I would have the camper bed thing. You'd set up a camper bed for me, and I would like go to sleep on that. And one of the times oh yeah, I haven't spoken about this for ages. We had a blunt, and it just nutted me out. It really properly nutted me out. Like, it just fucking sent me wobbly. Major thought overload going. You know, I was thinking these cool thoughts like, oh, maybe all of nature is about communion and communication. You know, because when a farmer is like digging in the ground, they're in communion and communication with the soil, and the soil is a communication with them, and everything's in communication. And then I was thinking, oh, maybe the whole problem that we're having in the world with regard to like politics is because not everyone has an independent vote that contributes to the whole world. So maybe there should be like each individual person should be able to vote towards the whole of the world's political system, and so it should be like, you know, every person should be voting on like every issue that comes up. So that'd be proper democracy, like if the whole world was able to vote independently on every issue that came along that affected them, and they would have a vote, and then it would go to a higher body of voters, and it was like this kind of hierarchy thing, but it started at the bottom, so the bottom of people always had a say on everything that happened. And then I thought, oh no, but then if I'm imposing that upon the world, then I'm basically like a dictator and a Hitler thing. And I was proper paranoid that I just suddenly created a dictatorship in my head, and I just like spasmed out and pranged out, and I was like going, no, 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 I'm Hitler, no, 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 like that, and that freaked me out. Yeah, that really scared me. I got to some places in my mind that I would suddenly, I guess I hit the shadow, I hit all my fears in the back of my mind, like they suddenly was like there, and I was like, oh shit, and fucking scared the hell out of myself. And I just was not happy in that moment, because like my head was spinning around, my body was just like, and there's nothing I could do about it, and I could barely move, and felt kind of paralyzed, and just so swirly and nauseous, and just all these thoughts going on, and it was a horrible experience. I may well have decided that I wanted to stop smoking weed at that point, and shortly afterwards I did. But some people would say, i.e. my dad, oh, the damage was done. The damage was done already. The damage was done. The damage was done. The damage was done. The damage was done. The damage was done by the weed already. The damage was done. The damage, the cannabis, the marijuana, the weed, the cannabis, the skunk, the marijuana, the weed, the cannabis, the skunk, the marijuana. If you got this far, well done, because I've cried a hell of a lot in this video. I realised that I've been pretty vulnerable here today. In a way, I've enjoyed it. It's been good to actually have cried about these things. Hey, Buddha. Thanks for listening. And thank you for watching. I appreciate you being here, watching my stuff, and yeah, listening and watching. So I don't have any lessons to give you. This is not a teaching seminar. Night, Buddha. Okay. Thanks. I don't know what to say. I'll see you soon. I'll talk to you soon. I'll be here again soon. Yeah. Bye.